Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ashler Initiates, Episode 1. So, here we are. This is my first time actually doing something like this, and I just wanted to let you all know, if anybody's listening, that I am so incredibly humbled by the fact that you actually want to listen to anything I have to say, right? It's just one of those situations where if I were to do something, this would probably not have been on top of my list, but I just realized something. I can be very expressive if I'm forced into it, and I actually end up enjoying it as well, right? So, my main concern here, as with most people, is am I going to make a fool of myself? Well, I'm here to tell you I don't give a shit about that. I haven't given a shit about that for a very long time. I think that's an inherent character trait when it comes to my personality. So, if I were to say one thing about what we're trying to do here is I've been interested in the concept of understanding not just the scientific side of the universe, but also maybe the more spiritual side of the universe for a very long time. I feel like it's something that's resonated with me from the very beginning. And in doing so, I've gone through different things in life. I've realized that even my family at some point has been quite involved with this stuff, starting off with my granddad, as far as I can tell, was the very first in this kind of uh, let's just call it interest. Back in Lahore, in Pakistan, he was part of the Masonic Lodge in the main city of Lahore, which has since been disbanded. Apparently, it was burned down by a Molotov cocktail at some point, and now it's an office building, an administration block, right? It started to be called Jadukar, which literally means magic house, and being a conservative country, extremely frowned upon, to say the least. Probably best way to put it is heretical, blasphemous, etc., etc. I honestly don't know where they got that notion. From my experience with my granddad, who I was extremely close to, he's always been one of the nicest people, smartest people, wisest, most stable people that I've known. Carrying forward over to my dad, who, while he was posted in Nigeria working for the government of Pakistan, he apparently became a Rosicrucian over there. Now, I'm not talking about the SRIA. It was actually more on the lines of the California San Jose Rosicrucian Order, which is a standalone kind of a system, but also very spiritual. I still have all of his pamphlets. Kind of archaic, seemed almost typewritten, kind of folding with rusty staples on them now, but beautiful looking diagrams in there as well. Some very, very profound thoughts in philosophy and things of that sort. So I've from there grown into a person who I guess was kind of thrown into these things. I wouldn't say unwillingly. It's always fascinated me. My dad had a huge library of about 400 books. That's another topic I'll get into another day. I mean, I still have those books. I brought those with me over here to Canada, where I'm currently recording this. So I personally don't understand how there's so many people living in such a shallow way, and were it up to me, I would make it part of education in schools to kind of just understand that there is a concept where you could also go down, I wouldn't call it a rabbit hole until you actually get that far, but this line of thought where there is something more than just this body that we have, and something more than just getting an education and then going and getting a job and then having kids and then societal values alone. And sure, a sense of community and participation and helping each other is something that resonates with all good people. I'd go as far as to say that's something that religion has nothing on, although it claims to in many ways. But when it comes to actual humanity, sympathy, empathy, understanding the unity of one another, that's something that I feel is a very common human trait. You find that even in infants, like babies, one as soon as they start to understand their senses and even look around. The first instinct that they have is collaboration, joy, play, working with one another. That's maybe the best way to describe it. And then for some reason along the way, it just becomes one of those things where, oh, this is a vice, oh, or is this a weakness? Even at the young age of 7 or 8, even I remember some bullying, but back in the 90s, and at least in the school that I was at, that was not really a big thing. I had one or two people who may have been a little bit on the douchey side at that age, but it was really nothing. I'm sure I was in some way too. We were just kids, but we were always, I think it's unsafe to say in anything, always is a big word, but most of the time we were happy. We were doing stuff that we wanted to do. We didn't know any better too. Sure, ignorance in that case is definitely a type of bliss, but I would say it's more about, I guess, the naivety of camaraderie, which somehow gets taken away from us. And I mean naivety in a positive light here, in the sense that when you're not tainted by the wrongdoings of society, by the pessimism of people around you, by heartbreak, amongst other things, these things change you profoundly, and for the worse, in my opinion. The lessons, you can say, can be learned from anything, and I totally agree with that, but in a perfect world, in a perfect universe, I guess, and I'm being too idealistic here, or utopian or whatever, but in such a circumstance, you wouldn't really need to now, would you? That's the problem. We tend to become people that we are required to become, rather than the people that we wish to become. And so many people, eventually, they're like, oh, if I only knew that those were going to be the best days of my life, I would have enjoyed them more. Well, even these are the best days of your life, if you think about it in some way. I know all of us are going through something, and everything could have been better. The benefit of hindsight, it's 2020. You look at things and you discover stuff about yourself by looking into the past. Most psychologists would explain to you that it's usually a distorted memory. Whatever you think your past actually was, it was definitely not exactly the same, and you've tweaked it and turned it and formed it into something that makes more coherent sense to you. And for now, one of the main things that I've been discovering about life is everything is in your control, but it's not in your control at the same time. We think we become the best versions of ourselves in any given moment. And then when you look back at those times, you suddenly realize, oh, you know what, I could have done it this way, or I could have done it that way. And that's precisely the kind of stuff that, even at a younger age of, I would say around 14, 15, this is where I was actually leaning towards these things. I discovered that, oh, you know something, if you just think about stuff on a deep level, unlike most people around you, that in itself enriches your life in ways that you just don't know. And because of that very reason, it just becomes one of those things where, without trying to inflate the ego or anything, but if you could only feel things a certain way, or maybe even just rudimentarily, if you can just feel things more, if you can see more detail, if you can eventually be the kind of person who doesn't let things go just for the sake of letting things go, that you actually like to understand thought patterns, processes, and get into the details of things, it changes you fundamentally on a very deep level. And it's kind of a snowball effect. It starts very basic. I think I have some funny stories of when I was a child, stuff that I don't remember what I was told by my parents. Like one very small idea that I had when I believe I was just 1 year old. This is something my parents told me. Is we had these guests come over in our house back in Nigeria, and I'm sure they were nice people. Looking back on it, I can even say I'm sure there maybe weren't nice people the way that my intuition works. But so this lady would just come and they're just talking, and my mom's talking and my dad's talking, and they're just chit chatting. But this lady had this tangent where she would just kind of shoot off into a separate topic, and there was no stop button. She would just keep going and going and going and going and going, and I was just on the floor there playing with my toys, sitting right in front of them while they're in the living room, right? And I'm on a carpet. I have, I don't know, like blocks or maybe some toy car on me, and not even paying any heed, right? But it got to a point where I feel like I sensed how annoyed my parents were now becoming. I just looked at this lady dead in the eye, apparently, allegedly, and I told her, looked her in the eye, lifted my finger like, shut up, and it just shocked her. Just shocked her completely. And this is how my dad says it. He's like, oh, okay, I should be leaving anyway. And she just immediately picked up and left. Who knows? Maybe I just picked up on something, Who knows? But, yeah. I think this was good as a test, right? We can do something better later.